Hey y'all, continuing with sweatshirt week because sweatshirts are my favorite thing. I'm wearing my vacation sweatshirt. Where do you guys like to vacation? Welcome to the Bible Tribe, Word of the Day. I'm Denise Pass with Seeing Deep Ministries, where we see deep in a shallow world and overcome the battles of the mind with the Word of God. Our minds can be our undoing when we let our thoughts run our lives. But if we will call to mind the goodness and love of God and the hope we have in Him, our thoughts can be transformed. We're reading today in the book of Lamentations, and the verse of the day is Lamentations 3:21 and 22. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. Word of the day is mind. It is the Hebrew word labe. It means heart, the inner person, the seat of thought, self, appetite, and emotions, conscience, courage, and understanding. This word for mind is often used to express the heart or the mind, but ultimately refers to our mind where all emotions and thinking take place. Lamentations is a book of 5 poems that reflects on the exile to Babylon. Chapter 1 deals with the grief and shame they encountered, and chapter 2 has the key word of God's wrath. The poet understands God's wrath, but still appeals to God. And chapter 3, drawing from Job, Psalms, and Isaiah, the poet relies on God's covenant faithfulness. Lamentation shows us that lament, prayer, and grief are a crucial part of the journey of faith of God's people. In chapters 1 and 2, Jeremiah, who is thought to be the author of Lamentations, wrote about the suffering of Jerusalem. And in chapter 3, Jeremiah's lament is personal. Jeremiah is pouring out his heart, his thoughts to God. He is identifying with the suffering of God's people and trying to make sense of it. And in the verse of the day, Jeremiah discovers a solution. Reading from Lamentations 3, starting in verse 19. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for Him. The Lord is good to those who hope in Him, to the one who seeks Him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. Suffering is real and certain and hard. It is difficult to see any good of it. But if we will, in our time of suffering, look to God instead to our own thoughts, we can rise up out of our grief and suffering. It is hard to hope when we just look to ourselves or our solutions or for our suffering. But when we call to mind the hope we have in God and believe in that hope, we become overcomers. Go with God and His precious word, friends. Join us tomorrow in the book of Psalms.